Good morning and welcome to WWDC.
Yes, today was WWDC 2022, and as expected by all the rumors we've been covering for weeks, it was pretty packed. Some expected the event to stick to its predominant software updates, but we incline with the others that knew there just had to be some hardware. Notice how I say some because we did get some of the things we expected, but not everything. I'm Jaime Rivera with Pocketnow, and let's dive in because it's a lot. Let me begin by highlighting what, in my opinion, was the hottest announcement today, and that's the new MacBook Air. Just when we thought that Apple was going to rehash the defunct single-port MacBook in multiple colors, what we have is a complete redesign that exceeds expectations. Somehow, the wedge shape is gone, and yet this laptop represents 20% less volume than its predecessor at just 2.7 pounds. We now get MagSafe, giving you more freedom with the two Thunderbolt 4 ports, though seriously, why not put one on each side? Instead, we get a single high-impedance headphone jack, sort of balancing the equation. The display is now larger at 13.6 inches thanks to the reduction in bezels, is 25% brighter, and now supports 1 billion colors. Sadly, it seems the notch is now a staple on MacBooks in order to provide that 1080p webcam that doubles resolution and low-light performance. The speakers and mics are now integrated in a way to even provide spatial audio with Dolby Atmos, and all this lives under the new keyboard that follows on the MacBook Pro DNA, from the larger function keys to the cooler Touch ID. Yes, just like last time, this new Air serves as one of two launch platforms for Apple's new M2 chip. As opposed to the rumored 3nm update, this is more of a second-generation 5nm chip that focuses on more power and efficiency. The same even split of 4 high-performance and 4 efficiency cores is now met with up to 10 cores in the GPU instead of the previous limit of 8, and now supporting up to 24 gigs of unified memory instead of 16. On the MacBook Air, this means the same 18 hours of battery life with added performance, all on a fanless unibody that has all the elements to be a great successor to what we had before. What's the catch? Well, as much as I absolutely love everything about the chip in this computer, this new model starts at $1199 for the same base 256 gigs of storage, which I find to be too little for its capabilities. It has all the potential for being the best laptop for most people, but that's if you prepare to spend an extra $300 for double that storage. As a consolation, you can still stick with the old M1 variant that will remain in shelves and miss out on part of the fun. Oh, and about that new 13-inch MacBook Pro with the M2 on a 7-year-old design, no MagSafe and the same price? Yeah, I would totally skip that one too, and also for anyone thinking the Mac Pro would be announced here, sadly that'll still have to wait, but at least this makes it sort of clear that it'll be built on the M2 platform. And since we already began with the Mac, it's only fair that we continue with the new version of macOS, now named after one of my favorite places in California. macOS Ventura is being presented as a way to help you be more productive and creative, and I'd say that I agree in part. I do like this whole stage manager approach where you can multitask in this sort of mix between window UI and expose, though we'll have to see the implementation as it does seem kind of convoluted for a smaller display. And then the other thing worth mentioning is how continuity now allows you to start a FaceTime call on your phone and move it to your Mac or iPad, and even use your iPhone as a better FaceTime camera for your Mac with the use of an optional stand, up to the point of even helping you portray your full desktop using the wide-angle camera. Yes, I agree, it looks too good to be true. Apple made a big deal about Metal 3 and how it'll prepare Macs to finally be good for gaming, with Resident Evil Village serving as an example. Obviously, it's going to be hard to tell how the gaming community will receive it, and especially after the whole Epic Games debacle. Other things like Spotlight Search, Mail, and Safari got improvements in search capabilities, and security essentials like Passkey that I found really cool, but we'll keep you posted on when that's ready to be able to demo it. Now, moving on to iOS 16, I think this was the second highlight of the show. The new lock screen updates, in my opinion, are phenomenal, and I'm sure I'll read a ton of your references to Material U in the comments, but I think this goes far beyond just giving you a way to switch the color palette. Having multiple lock screens that cater to your focus modes is genius, plus all the granularity you get in order to customize the look and the feel with its gallery. Now, I think the most important change is the widgets, but not for the reasons you think. I mean, sure, it's cool to see sports scores, your activity, and other options and small icons under the clock, but if you think of it, this is precisely how Android always-on displays work, so consider this as a hint for a much-rumored feature for the iPhone 14 series. Other subtle updates come to focus filters so that not only your apps get hidden when you're busy, but also Safari pages. Messages finally joins every other messaging platform with edit messages and undo send. SharePlay now also works with your texting, and we do see some cohesive updates to dictation and live text that are pretty nice. That whole option for visual lookup to help you select objects from a photo without having to cut them out on Photoshop is pretty amazing. We'll go into detail on the rest of the updates to Wallet, Maps, Sports, Family Sharing, Home, and Privacy when we get the public beta in July. If anything, what I wish happened as quickly is everything that's coming to CarPlay and how the service will now adapt to different screens and even interact with vehicle indicators. I say as quickly because this is clearly something we'll have to wait for car makers to implement in future vehicles. Now, I wish Apple had bigger news for iPadOS, but I think the best way to see it is as if iOS 16 and macOS Ventura had a baby that's sort of learning how to walk on its own. Guys, we finally got a weather application on the iPad, and yes, forgive my sarcasm, but it only took 12 years to implement? Though Apple made this big deal about its exclusive experiences on the larger canvas and the API for developers. But fine, in its defense, there's also a freeform service that will launch later this year that allows you to collaborate on a whiteboard environment through FaceTime. The idea here is to have one place where you can brainstorm on ideas, files, sketches, etc. And speaking of collaboration, you now can fully do so on files with other users, sort of like you always could do with Google Docs anyways. But that being said, most of everything that I'm mentioning is actually not an iPadOS exclusive. Photo collaborations through iCloud and even Freeform will also work on other Apple products. I thought this would finally be the day when Apple would announce desktop-class applications for M1 iPads, but I'd call it more of a logical UI enhancement. The nicer way to say it is that the Files app and others get a bit more computer-like features. For example, you can now scale the UI in a way that better takes advantage of the canvas and the pixel density. External monitor support also gets a much-needed fix where all the mirrored pillar boxing is gone in favor of a true extended mode like you can on a computer. Also, that Stage Manager multitasking service we saw for the Mac is also making its way to the M1 iPads, and Metal 3 Gaming will also join the fun along with other improvements to Game Center. So yeah, no Final Cut Pro for iPad, but there was a subtle announcement that gives me hope. See, right now the M1 iPads barely take advantage of the amount of RAM built into the chip, so to see Apple announce a virtual memory swap feature that taps into storage to double your RAM could be an indication that it's in the works. Trust me, I'll be the first person to start recommending these M1 iPads as devices truly made for pros the moment that happens. Now, forgive me for expecting more, but I thought watchOS 9 was going to finally be the last piece of the puzzle needed for me to return to the Apple Watch after my switch to Garmin. Don't get me wrong, it's still cooler than most. We get 4 new watch phases, a refreshed Siri UI, and other UI improvements, but Apple breezed through them so fast that I don't think you and I should care about them more than they did. Where I'm mixed is in the updates to sports, because a lot of features I've wanted are coming, but the implementation sounds like it's lacking, at least in the way the keynote described them. For example, I am a runner, and all of the enhancements to the built-in running options sounded almost perfect. It now includes cool metrics like vertical oscillation, stride length, and ground contact time. We finally get heart rate zone measurements, and you can even plan custom workouts that are triggered by some of these new metrics. Sleep tracking finally gets stages for you to understand the quality of your sleep and not just how much you slept. The problem is that while none of this is new to Garmin users, I feel Apple fell short in giving you a cohesive way to measure your overall fitness condition over time. The only reason Garmin continues to be superior is not just because you can measure these stats, as the Apple Health application is full of them, but because of the insights you get from the Garmin services when combining all of them to give you a bird's eye view of where you stand. Closing circles is fun and all, but any pro will tell you it's not really smart training. If anything, kudos to Apple for the heart rate condition metrics and also having a medication tracker that can even measure when meds interact negatively with others or even alcohol. In my opinion, this is not just unique, but pretty genius. Last but not least, it's great to see that Apple will help you get some of these metrics on your iPhone from now on, saving you the need to buy an Apple Watch if you don't really want one. To conclude, yes, this was a pretty packed event. I wouldn't consider any of the software updates as revolutionary, but instead more of a progression of features to the existing establishment. It's crazy how iOS revamped its visuals completely in version 7, but 9 generations later, there seems to be no intent for dramatic changes. If anything, I'll say I'm fine with the continuity of these platforms as they're still doing well, but I do wonder why we didn't see updates to the services that are slightly behind, like tvOS or major updates to Siri. Really, the only two major things on my book are the new MacBook Air and that new M2 chip. Apple's silicon was clearly the formula the Mac needed to gain the popularity it deserved, and I love to see how Cupertino does not stop its aggressive push for more while competitors continue to scramble. All we need now is that Mac Pro, as the 2-year transition period is pretty much over. I think if Apple wanted to make a statement, it did with these two products, but not with anything WWDC was really all about. Let us know if you agree with our thoughts in the comments down below, and while you're at it, follow us on social media and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this one. You can also follow me on my personal handles to see me when I find the reason to go back to my Apple Watch, but I mean a solid reason. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like what you saw. I'm Jaime Rivera. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.